here.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Green Room for DisrupTV. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Bala Afshar, co-founder of DisrupTV. And, of course, you know him at Salesforce. And, of course, we got Hannah, our producer for today. She steps in. She produces CRTV. And, of course, if you look at our website, you can see the amazing work that's going on in our marketing team. Okay, let's introduce our guests in reverse order, as we always do. Andrea, where are you coming in today?
I am live in Manhattan on the Upper West Side of New York City.
Oh, very, very nice. Hopefully click the Lincoln Jazz Center. But yes, so Andrea, welcome. We're going to look forward to talking to you about your book. David, Bob, what are you talking about today? Where are you guys coming in from, David?
I'm coming in from the blast radius of Washington, D.C., and excited to talk about cybersecurity, AI, and data centers with Bob.
Wow, you're probably coming in from about 7 o'clock. Bob, where are you coming from in the blast radius?
I'm still in the D.C. area in a place called Manassas, Virginia, where there were two famous Civil War battles, both of which have lessons for us in the modern age of agentic AI.
Wow. So you're 9 o'clock, but outside of the blast radius of D.C., somewhere on 66. I think that's great. We'll make our way through here. Well, with that, we're going to kick off the show. Hannah, please give us the count, and we will start soon.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Bala Afshar. I'm the Chief Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, our distinguished guests, your questions live, and we'll do our best to answer them in the next hour. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. Ray Wong is the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see him on TV. It feels like daily. CNN, CNBC, Fox Business, Yahoo Finance. He's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWANG0. Welcome, Mr. Wong, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm here with Bala Afshar, the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, Boundless, Autonomous, all #1 sellers on Amazon, and The Path to the Future. If you have not read these, you're missing out. Executives around the world are paying attention to every one of his inspirational, insightful tweets. And when he's not keynoting and he's not leading events at Salesforce and not on a plane, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg, ABC, and also writing insightful analyses on ZDNet. As we know, it's not about us. It's always been about our guests. And we have two amazing individuals. These are BT 150 level amazing individuals to share with us some insights. Who do we have to kick it off today, Bala?
It's our privilege. We have Bob Gourley, co-founder, CTO of UDA LLC, and David Bray, distinguished chair, Accelerator Stimson Center, and principal CEO of LDA Ventures. Bob is an experienced board member, a chief technology officer, board qualified technical executive, and author and entrepreneur with extensive past performance in enterprise IT, corporate cybersecurity, and data analytics. Bob is co-founder and CTO of UDA, home of the UDA Network, a community of business leaders, technologists, intelligence, and security professionals. Bob is the winner of InfoWorld Top 25 CTOs and Washington Magazine DC Tech Titan list. Bob has been an advisor to dozens of successful high-tech startups and has conducted enterprise cybersecurity assessments for businesses in multiple sectors of the economy. He was a career naval intelligence officer as the former CTO of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Welcome, Bob, to DisrupTV.
Thanks, Bala.
apologies, I had to cut your bio. We only have an hour, and you've done a lot. And, with Bob, we have our first ballot Hall of Fame inductee into DisrupTV, Dr. David Bray, Distinguished Fellow and Chair of the Accelerator with Alfred Lee Lumen Innovation Council and nonpartisan Henry L. Stimson Center. David is, as I mentioned, CEO and principal at Lead Do Adapt Ventures. Business Insider named Dr. Bray top 24 Americans who are changing the world under 40, and he was named Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum. For 12 different startups, David has served as president, CEO, or chief strategy officer or strategy advisor. Welcome back, David, to DisrupTV.
Oh, thank you, Vala. Thank you, Ray. It's always great to be here with you.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. And of course, a wide range of topics. You both have extensive experience, both not in enterprise, also in the public-private sector, in terms of being able to manage what's happening there. And of course, today's topic wouldn't be more interesting if we didn't talk about the A's, atoms, algorithms, and accountability. That's a very interesting theme. So let's start here. Bob, you've done a lot on cybersecurity, and data centers are being built. There are physical and cybersecurity concerns that you have to worry about in these build outs of these data centers. What would happen if you cut the power next to them, or some Chinese farmer had some agricultural land next door?
There have been some very prescient secure design centers built in good defendable locations, but that's really the minority. Here in Northern Virginia, data centers are built right next to busy roads, right next to suburbia. And they're built that way because all people are good, really. Maybe some of them are tempted to be bad sometimes. So you have surveillance and law enforcement and fences. But in this world where technology is enabling bad people and people are becoming tempted to be disruptive in bad ways, it's introduced a lot of new vulnerabilities for these data centers that are so easily approachable. One quick anecdote as we all think about this. Just 2 days ago, there was a report of a collision between a United Airlines aircraft flying over San Diego at 4,000 feet with a drone. And no one the investigation is not finished, but it just underscores the power of drones in people's hands if they decide to do bad things with them. Every data center you see seems approachable by drones.
Well, you got to have a 48 megawatt project by Menlo Digital next to a Costco somewhere on Pulse Drive. But hey, well, who cares? Nobody would know that. You might as well shop, check out, the data center, hang out with the NeoCloud. It all happens in a day's good work,
I remember I was with you, Ray, when we were driving by this massive data center location.
Las Vegas.
Illuminated in red lights, and it was like you were driving by a casino. I was actually very surprised how prominent they were showcasing that this is a massive data center location. Dr. Bray, you advise, as I mentioned in your bio, dozens of startups and large enterprise discussions around data centers. And what are the CEOs and board members thinking about in terms of data centers fueling and powering this AI revolution that we're all experiencing?
So, first and foremost, I'm reminded that Bob and I are both, we met each other in 2008. We're both intelligence officers, and we were doing a discussion about how the intelligence community was changing back in 2008. And one of the things we actually did highlight was stay tuned for drones to increasingly become commercially available to individuals.
Yeah.
In the last 2 weeks, I have had meetings both with large companies, but also with government agencies, including the FAA. And while I can't really necessarily say too much, I can say, for example, there's a large film company that might also have amusement parks and be associated with a mouse, where apparently they can't go anywhere to film openly without a drone showing up.
Wow.
That is the world we are now in. And it's presumed to be just people that just want to keep track of what they're doing, or maybe steal footage or report on it or something like that. But the good news is this is commercially available. The bad news is this is commercially available. And so to Bob's point, you see what's happening in Eastern Europe. You see what's happening in the Middle East. What would happen if someone was to actually try and do this to be, quite frankly, as Bob said, disruptive in a bad way?
Just one other comment on that. In many other problem areas, the way you would solve it is, okay, I'm going to pick one person and put in charge of fixing this problem. Well,
Right.
here it's a cross-jurisdictional, cross-boundary, cross-agency kind of issue where it's, you need state and local law enforcement.
Right.
You need, of course, a DOD for some big threats. You need FAA. You need multiple cabinet departments working on this. It's tough, and you need to work with the innovators who can build the defensive solutions. DOD has some great solutions for shooting down UAVs, but many of those fire bullets, and those bullets are going to land somewhere. So it's not going to be effective in data center defense.
And the drone is what I really want, and what I'm starting to see, I hope more people do, is drones that can tackle another drone in midair with glue. And so that actually means for like future events, say like, maybe there's a soccer game, maybe there's some like big profile events, they need to have designated what I would call fall areas, that if a drone tackles another drone in midair, then it can actually tumble and try to get it away from the audience, away from the civilians that are on the ground.
Wow.
And so this is just something that's going to be a reality, is we just got to recognize is like, how do you know when those drones that are shooting camera footage for the event, someone else doesn't pop up another drone, or worse, compromise your camera drone through cyber means? The other thing that we also need to keep in mind is data centers themselves, very sensitive electronic equipment. And so while some people say you can do like jamming or electronic magnetic, I'm like, the last thing you want to do near a data center is anything involving like, that'll go badly. So Bob is right. It's going to require new solutions. And it also needs to be solutions that we can actually have available, not just to companies, but heaven forbid that high profile VIPs, they may need also additional security for that as well.
That brings up a really good point. I mean, when you look at this, David, like there are geopolitical risks here with physical energy requirements. Like what happens, right, when you're thinking about this? I mean, do they just get cut off? Do they get tracked? Do we just shut off the thing? I mean, that's one angle of it. And then if you think about what else is happening, like we don't have baseline power in a lot of these places. So what happens if the energy sources are not on the grid?
Yeah. Oh, well, and you see some states have already permitted private companies to do their own private energy as a way of powering their data centers, which they're not on the grid. And so, yeah, this is an interesting time. I think, the joy of the United States is we're a free market and a free society. The messiness of the United States is we're a free society and a free market. And so it's going to be interesting. I think the other thing just to track is some states are actually requiring, even before the ground is broken on a data center, that the company involved commits to actually building it or pays an exit fee if in 3 to 5 years they don't actually build it. Because a lot of states are feeling a little skeptical about this is going to be a huge energy resource. It's going to impact the cost of energy in our state. And so we want you to guarantee that you're actually going to build this as opposed to like start and then stop about a year and a half later.
Yeah.
And the stop and start, the bottlenecks and risks associated with supply chain uncertainty, physical components, raw material. Bob, are you tracking these potential risk categories that may either delay or ultimately suspend, further production in terms of data centers, new data centers?
Yes, and big ones you just mentioned. There are things like where are we getting the transformers for this? The step down transformers from the grid. People want to build the nuclear power plants. How fast are we going to get these small modular plants? And every data center is different, of course, but most of them are now recognizing the need for diesel generators. Most of them already have diesel generators, but depending on where you build, there's limits on how long you can run those things. You may have battery backup that's going to last 5 seconds if there's just an outage. And then the diesel generator, you may be limited to, say, 10 hours, and then you got to shut it off. Wow. So if somebody disrupts your electricity, you got to get that electricity back on fast.
Oh, yeah.
Do we know which states are leading in terms of data center deployments, new data center deployments?
Virginia, definitely, as Bob mentioned. And that's probably just, there's a whole lot of dark fiber that that's why they build the data centers where they do, is there's just so much dark fiber from the AOL days. But I also think I've heard Texas is also, because, there's energy available as well.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
The Meta data center in Louisiana is apparently going to be the size of Manhattan.
Yeah. What is the number one state for renewable energy right now? Take a guess. For production of renewable energy.
I'm tempted to say Texas, but I could be wrong. No?
It is Texas. It's not
No.
California. It's not anywhere else. Texas has more renewable energy than anywhere else right now.
Wow.
Well, I think they're incentivized to remain the energy dominance that they are. So
Whether
they're playing
it's
the
carbon or non-carbon, they are moving in that direction. So, but yeah, but hey, David, I think what's important here is really thinking about how do we actually keep continuity, right? Business resiliency here. I mean, what happens when we have these geopolitical risks? I mean, what are boards saying? I mean, are they even thinking about that? I mean, do you even worry about where your power supply comes from?
So this is the challenge that you face, and I'm reminded of the disruptive episode we had a while back where we had the deputy director of the FBI, and it's like all these threats are real, but they're overwhelming to boards. Like boards kind of shut down, and so I think really the boards need to say, because you can't go and do every micro detail. It really is.
Nope.
What are our business plans if we have a physical disruption? What are our business plans if we have a cyber or digital disruption? What is our plans if our supply chains in certain areas? So it really has to be take it to the next level, take it to a higher level, and then say, we just want to make sure you, the CEO, are rewarding people coming to you and saying we might have a gap and here's the solution. And again, the CEO should expect his or her staff to say, don't just come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. But I think, and this is where Bob pointed out, right now, a lot of organizations, if someone comes to you with a cybersecurity risk and you don't have money to fix it, it just gets shut down. We don't reward people for identifying issues.
Nope.
And so I think it's going to be in this era in which, again, we could be right now, things are happening in the Middle East, but things could get a lot heated in the Pacific in the next 12 months. And so boards should at least be saying, CEOs, are you creating a culture in which people can identify challenges and again, ask them to bring solutions, and you will actually give attention to that? Because otherwise, if you're not addressing things that your staff find, you're going to be always only looking at point solutions and you're not going to be resilient.
And a comment on that, it depends on the kind of company, of course, but people I know in the large hyperscalers, it's like there was always a Cassandra there who was saying, this is coming, we got to get ready for it. Yes. And too frequently, the Cassandras are not listened to until something happens, like your data center in the Middle East gets bombed by Iran. And then it's like, oh, hey, wasn't this guy warning us about this for the last 7 years? So for the hyperscalers, listen to your Cassandras. But then the enterprise IT professionals we all work with and love in industries, multiple industries, they need to think through their resiliency. What happens if this provider of a capability is no longer reachable because of their path or their data center? What do you do for business continuity?
So and to Bob's point, he called them Cassandras. I call them responsible heretics. But it really is the person that if you don't listen to, things will happen. I also want to point out, because while we were talking about drones, just because this is something I'm working, I got a call a few days before Christmas last year. Most U.S. commercial drones have not been tested against foreign jammers and foreign radars. And so we're working to actually get that approved. If you saw lately, like the commander of special operations says that's actually what he wants. He actually wants to start testing U.S. commercial drones in real conditions. But this also raises the point, which is most business enterprises, what would happen if you suddenly lost Wi-Fi and all cellular communications because of a jammer? Because these jammers nowadays can actually be carried in a suitcase. And so if that starts to happen, it also raises the question, is this the responsibility of physical security? Is this responsible of cybersecurity? So as Bob said, it cuts across multiple areas. And part of it is maybe just maybe you need to bring in outside responsible heretics to say, let's every quarter try a different scenario that brings these different things together and actually ask the people in your C-suite, how would you respond if all of a sudden you lost comms and at the same time it's unclear if your data centers are being physically attacked?
I'm wondering what the Cassandras are saying about, and we talked about autonomous drones, but the whole world is becoming more and more autonomous vehicles, humanoid robots. Obviously, software today in business with agentic AI is bringing autonomy into the enterprise. My favorite word, autonomous. Yeah. So what are the Cassandras telling you, Bob, when it comes to cybersecurity, where now you have essentially, work that's being done by AI? It's no longer generating, it's actually executing complex workflows unsupervised.
A lot of discussions on that topic. And a lot of those discussions have been underway for a couple of years, and they were accelerated by Anthropic's Mythos and their project Glasswing. rapidly followed by OpenAI's developments in their TAC for cybersecurity, where the general gist, well, what I believe is we are in for a period of extremely hard times for cybersecurity professionals as they have to mitigate a rapid influx of patches and vulnerability fixes from their IT vendors. And anyone who has their own developers or they partner with smaller boutique firms to build things for them, they're going to have a really rapid focus on fixing vulnerabilities because of these. However, after this period of chaos, I just have no doubt things will be much better because of these tools. These vulnerabilities have existed for years. These vulnerabilities have existed since before the age of agentic AI. And now we have a chance at fixing more and more and more of them. So maybe it's just my naive optimism, but I really believe things are going to be looking much better in cybersecurity because of these tools.
We had a former CISO on our show that talked about the need for purple teams. Red teams find the vulnerabilities. Blue teams have so much issues that they need to patch. They don't know how to prioritize. They don't know how to, based on business impact. So there's now literally specialty team that helps companies identify in which order to address these issues. Is this going to be so? There is a messy middle for some time, from what I just heard from you, Bob. Dave, your thoughts about the fact that we're going to be challenged in the near future, and there'll be a need for us to figure out how to address all these vulnerabilities that will be identified.
Spot on, and I love the fact that actually you mentioned purple teams, and apparently our color scheme here theme is purple. So I think you're spot on. I've been telling boards and CEOs and to be ready for, in the short term, your KPIs for cybersecurity are going to get worse. But that's not because your team is not performing well. It's just you're going to be finding things using AI. And so, as Bob said, now that said, it's kind of interesting because some of these AI entities think that the moment you spot something that's a vulnerability, you would immediately patch it. But you and I know you've got to test it. You got to say, does that break other things in the enterprise? Because I might apply that patch, but then all of a sudden you took my e-commerce, pipeline off. And so that's exactly where you're going to need to have the resources, the combination of human power. And what I would love is a combination of human power aided by AI to say, how can I rapidly assess which patches can I do right now, either because it's a high priority or it's not going to break something. Because again, we don't really have a good way of modeling that. And then it may very well be that you determine that a patch will break something. And so that's where you're going to need a combination of human coders and possibly, whether it's Claude code or something else, you may need to write a rapid workaround, because I think in the short term, there's a very real risk that not only will the good actors know about these vulnerabilities, but bad actors will too. And again, the bad actors don't care if they break something. They're going to start exploiting it. So I've been trying to tell boards and CEOs, be prepared for your cybersecurity KPIs to initially look bad, and then, as Bob said, get better. And the good news is, again, if in the future servers, future OSs are stress tested against an AI before they're released, we're actually going to have a better cybersecurity future in 2 to 3 years from now.
Another comment that you guys make me think of, there are so many companies today that have really not made progress on their cloud journey yet. This may be yet another excuse for them to accelerate the migration to the cloud, where you can have capabilities that are delivered and they're being watched and maintained by thousands of engineers, and able to keep this far more resilient and reliant and up to date than your
Can I say a hallelujah? I mean, that's why I did the FCC. I couldn't say at the time when I went to the FCC, but they had 2 advanced persistent threats from foreign nation states still present in their IT systems when I inherited the IT system. So I told my wife when I started my job, I was like, I can't trust the IT systems I'm inheriting. And that's why we went to cloud. It saved money, but it was also just that the amount that the FCC could spend on cybersecurity versus these large hyperscalers, the hyperscalers are going to spend more on cybersecurity.
So you anticipate this will be the driver, AI, cybersecurity will be a driver for adoption of public cloud, because again, you've got hyperscalers and main players that again have red teams, blue teams in the thousands trying to protect their availability. Do you also think that adoption of platforms like NVIDIA's Omniverse, where you can create a digital twin of your business and really test resiliency, because you have the opportunity to scenario plan and test your protection against vulnerabilities on a digital twin, and gives you an ability, almost a sandbox, to really understand threat vectors and how you can mitigate risk.
You know, there's so many other reasons to use digital twins. There's been such massive delivery of benefits from this for those that apply it to things like supply chain and your internal systems.
Sure.
So yes, cybersecurity on top of those other benefits of building the digital twin is a key one. But it could also help you re-engineer and architect. Here's my digital twin of me currently, which includes X number of on-prem things. Now here's the next version. If I move this to the cloud, what does that look like? And then execute.
Yes. And but here's the flip side. We're seeing so much air gap, so much private, so much on-prem. Where do you see this going? Is cloud adoption going in the other direction as we go more?
I will say I went to cloud because at the time that was the only way I could get secure. I'm excited about what's happening at Apple with their new CEO and also their CEO. Like, it's clear they're going to be a hardware company, which to me means they're going to put the pedal to the metal to make it so that you could choose, if you wanted to run the equivalent of AI and other cloud services locally. And so I think what we'll see probably in the next 2 to 4 years, and this will be interesting to see how Apple, which usually does not play in the enterprise, how Apple helps navigate it, which is you could choose to take that cloud service that you have gone to a hyperscaler to host and choose to have an offline or an edge hosted version that could sync back up if you wanted to. So you're getting the best of both worlds, which is the cloud is responsible, or whoever's providing the service is responsible for keeping it up to date secure wise. But if you need to go offline, or for whatever reason you are going offline because comms have been disrupted or you're in a war zone, you can. And that hardware, interestingly enough, is Apple's going to be leading the way.
Yeah, we're seeing definitely that, especially the fact that they're decentralized and of course they're on the edge, right? Decentralized AI is 3 billion parameters on a device, right? Decentralized AI is going to be, oh wait, Macs are selling like hotcakes. Everybody wants to get their M4 Mini, Mac Mini.
Well, and we saw this before. I mean, that's what the Apple computer was. The Apple computer was in an era in which there were these things called mainframes. Mainframes were like cloud back in the day. And all of a sudden Apple said, look, you can do sort of what you did on a mainframe on your own personal computer. So this is a story as old as time, which is we get centralized, we get decentralized, we get centralized, and now we're going to get decentralized again.
Yeah, and in the world of OpenClaw, you know, so much of the power of OpenClaw is local. It works on your computer, but it's plugging into these cloud models. And so it's that nice hybrid kind of balance.
Yes. It's going to be fun.
My final question to both of you. You're advising boards, you're advising CEOs. Sage advice. What's one advice you give to CEOs as they're tackling this unprecedented innovation velocity, the speed and the direction, whether it's cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, need for energy and expansion? What, are all companies technology companies? Does the CIO need to have, is that person the right-hand person for a CEO moving forward? What should CEOs be thinking about to ready their company for all this exponential growth?
You know, every company is different, but for those that don't have a data lead or a data strategy, you need an AI acceleration strategy that's going to include your data strategy. Another thing that I advise all CEOs, all C-suite, all board directors, get in there and play with this stuff yourself. It's fun, it's enjoyable, it gives you hands-on experience. It's really not hard, and it will make you more fluent as you interact not only with your own staff, but with these frontier model providers. So those are my 2 pieces of advice to any senior leader.
Suit up and get in the game. I love that. That's same. I say the same. Yeah.
So I would lean in and amplify. I recommend to CEOs and to boards, actively recruit people, as well as you can use AI to see around corners. And what I mean is don't bring in people that are just going to reinforce the things you already know. There's no value in that at all. What you want is, again, those responsible heretics that are able to think 2 and 3 steps ahead, that are able to say, here's something you need to be tracking. They are sometimes labeled Cassandras, sometimes they're labeled as naysayers, but they're really bringing things that you need to be aware of, because the world is changing. We're going to see more change in the next 5 years, I'd submit, than we did in the last 20 years. And so that's going to be a testing, a crucible. The second thing is also building on what Bob said. Have a data strategy, I would just say, but unlearn the lessons from the last 15 years. I was actually asked this at an event yesterday where I was giving a keynote. I said, you definitely need to have a data strategy, but this idea that data is the new oil is so out of date. Oil use it and it's gone. Data use it, it's still there. And actually, if you involve the customers, the clients associated with the data, they'll find errors, they'll make it better, they feel trusted. And so we actually need the reverse of treating data like oil. If anything, we need to use it as a way to build trust and build greater partnerships with the very customers and clients that we work with.
Amazing. Always great stuff here with David Bray, Distinguished Chair of the Accelerate Stimson Center and Principal CEO of Lead, Do, Adapt Ventures. You know why I'm doing that, David. So, and of course, we're with Bob Gourley, UDA CTO, and of course, legendary CISO of many, many places. So, hey, thanks for being on the show, sharing your insights, and of course, being here on DisrupTV.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
So,
Ray, these are big, important topics when we talk about, obviously, they're number one, number two. Some research speak to cybersecurity as number one, others speak to AI as number one, but they both 1-2 priorities for CEOs and boards, and certainly all the executives that I have the privilege of collaborating with. Okay, this is our cleanup hitter spot. We're in baseball season, so we're bringing that last hitter, and she hits a grand slam and brings it all home. Andrea Bonime-Blanc, author of Governing Pandora, Leading in the Age of Generative AI and Exponential Technology. Andrea is founder and CEO of GEC Risk Advisory. She's a board member and an advisor. Andrea specializes in the governance of change, focusing on global strategic risk, leadership, trust and ethics, geopolitical change, sustainability, exponential tech, advising businesses, NGOs, and government institutions. Andrea serves on several boards, advisory boards. She's a senior fellow at the Conference Board of Governance and Sustainability Center, senior fellow at NYU Center for Global Affairs, AI Ethics Strategy Fellow at the American College for Financial Services, and many more. Andrea has written 6 books, Ray. man, when I have imposter syndrome, anytime I get folks on the show that I've written this many books. Latest one is obviously Governing Pandora, which we're going to talk about. And welcome, Andrea, to DisrupTV.
Thank you so much. The pressure is on after that amazing conversation you guys had.
I'm from Boston, so the Red Sox are on my mind, and they're not doing well. So maybe and the Celtics are going Game 7, and the Bruins are about to potentially get eliminated. So I'm kind of nervous. But anyway,
I'll try to help you with that.
well, hey, we're really excited to have you. And what's important about this is the paradox. And one of the things that you lead off in your book is you talk about this dual risk, right? You look at it from a dual risk lens. And I thought that was very important, like looking at that and also thinking about what is happening in this space. Because we're moving really quickly. And many times it feels like the policy can't keep up with the technology. So let's start with the age of Pandora and what started it.
So we've obviously had a lot of technology change over the last 30 years, give or take, and there's always some technology change going on. But I think the release into the wild of ChatGPT in 2022 kind of woke this whole thing up, because it allowed AI, which had already been around for a while, suddenly to be deployed to the masses. I remember I got my first ChatGPT experience within a month of it starting. And then, of course, everything else that's followed. And to me, generative AI, agentic AI now, and all the other iterations of what we're seeing is really integrating and spreading all over the world of technology. So I had written a piece for NACD Directorship Magazine about how do boards govern these new technologies, or these turbocharged technologies, including generative AI. And I got a request from Georgetown University Press to put a proposal together. And my point was, if I'm going to write this thing, I'm going to write it not only about generative AI, but about all the other exponential technologies that are basically getting turbocharged by, and so the reason for calling it Pandora is that really the box of technologies has been opened. We cannot close it. So we need to sort of take care of business, right? Because if you think about the Pandora mythology, all the bad things, the ills of the world came out, but there was also hope in that box. So I'm trying to say, look, yes, this has been released. Yes, it's kind of out of control. We can't control all the parameters and consequences, but we can be responsible. So for me, it's about those of us who think about responsibility and ethics and stakeholder impacts have to work alongside with the innovators to ensure that the future arrives well. Let's put it that way.
Agreed.
You've written about a governance perspective that can be an advantage in the presence of exponential technology. In fact, you talk about it in terms of exponential governance mindset. Can you talk to us about what that means?
Sure. So going back to the point about this is not just about generative AI, but it's all these other technologies. And my feeling, and I think it's been borne out in the last couple of years now, is that as everything converges and is interconnected with each other, we're talking about biotechnology and synthetic bio, we're talking about advanced materials, we're talking about automation and robotics, we're talking about frontier computing. We haven't even reached quantum yet, even though Mythos is giving us a taste, I think, of what that might be like. With all of this happening at once, converging and turbocharging each other, I feel like we've entered this fifth industrial revolution, perhaps, that goes way beyond the computing revolution that preceded us, because it's leading in places that are much more, there's much more scale, much more innovation, much more potential. And getting back to the dual risk or dual use issue, to me, there's so much potential for good in the middle of the dangers, right? So to the points that the gentleman made before about, are you a Cassandra and so on? Yeah, it's important that we have Cassandras, but it's also important that the Cassandras and the innovators work together always, not just when the nightmare happens, so to speak.
Yeah, it can't be out of convenience, and you're definitely right. I mean, but that means the way we look at governance, the way we look at risk, the way we manage this changes. You talk about an exponential governance framework. What is that?
Right. I forgot to answer that. I got carried away with some other things.
Sorry,
Yes.
I had to take you back there. It's like the crux. It's the crux of your book here.
Oh my God, yes, it is. So I was giving you the backdrop of why I think an exponential governance mindset is so important. And so I do explore those technologies at the beginning, but my whole point is that board members, decision makers, policymakers, executives, everybody has to adopt a much more future ready, future forward, change sensitive and change ready kind of attitude. And I have these 5 pillars of the exponential governance mindset that I talk about. They're all very, they're concepts that we're all familiar with. So they're very, 20th century or even 21st, beginning of the century. It's about leadership and governance, being sort of an integrated whole of tech governance from top down, middle out, and bottom up. And we heard about some of the challenges from your previous guests in terms of cybersecurity and so on. So we want to have an integrated tech governance approach, life cycle approach. And that's one of the concepts. There's 4 others. One is about culture and ethos and how do we create a culture of tech responsibility. The third one is about how stakeholders that are in the tech loop, so to speak, how do we identify them, understand the impacts on them of the technologies and their expectations so that we end up having, a better reputational situation with them? Because if we have adverse impacts on these people and on these stakeholders, the communities that have the data centers, for example, and we don't have a plan to deal with it, we will lose our reputation, the trust of the stakeholder, et cetera. So that's the third piece. The fourth piece is about building resilience. And that's a whole sort of risk, audit, evaluation, making sure we're doing it for the future and not just for the past. So the whole risk management, business continuity exercise has to be much more tech ready and future forward. And then the last one is about developing a foresight strategy that really integrates all the technologies that are important to your particular footprint. So there's a very quick sort of review of those 5 pillars that I consider to be the exponential governance mindset.
Got it.
I'm curious in terms of your thoughts. So you've got a group that's trying to sprint towards accelerating innovation, specifically in the world of AI, quickly trying to get to AGI and quickly getting to a world of autonomy. And you have folks, even folks that are leaders of some of these frontier AI companies, cautioning and speaking to potentially pausing and slowing down this pace of innovation. Your thoughts in terms of balancing this tension that exists between folks that want to innovate as fast as possible, and others who think that society as a whole could benefit from a pause?
Yeah, so I take to task a number of different people and thought leaders, let's call them, like the Techno Optimist manifesto that Mark Andreessen put together a few years ago. That kind of got me going, thinking about what is he trying to distinguish here, and separate out, quote unquote, the tech doomers from the tech accelerators. And I think that's an exaggerated. It's a little exaggerated. But
dystopian Canadian sci-fi movies have gotten to all of us.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want some of the court testimonials just this week,
oh God,
I mean, there were statements that definitely spoke to both spectrum.
Absolutely, yeah. And we don't even have Dario Amodei in that courtroom, so
right.
So I mean, I think all of these people are a little bit suspect in terms of what they really think, but what they really want to do, especially the accelerationists and the people represented by, say, a Musk or an Altman, they want unfettered ability to move forward with their innovation, with their plans, with their investments, and they want the help of the government, and the government is helping them right now. So we have sort of the perfect storm of the accelerationists can dominate the world now.
When did we have it where you could have your cake and eat it too? I mean, like getting handouts from the government and you get to do whatever you want. Like that's never happened in the history.
It's never happened in the history of the United States. Market economics, right? Market capitalism. So we have that group of people who's getting their way and then some, right? So, and then we have a group of people, I call those people the tech masters of the universe. Then I have the tech guardians of the universe. So again, going back to the sci-fi and some other possible implications. The tech guardians of the universe are the people who are traditionally, a lot of them are in think tanks, universities, professors, others who have returned from being in the for-profit world to think about some of the implications, and with thinking of Max Tegmark from the Future of Life Institute, Tristan Harris from the Center for Humane Technology. We have a bunch of authors who've done some very interesting work. So I put them more in the category of the tech guardians of the universe. But what I'm trying to do through the book is say, hey, we need these people to be talking to each other and working with each other. And the way you operationalize that within a company, and I advise companies, especially for profit, but also organizations that are nonprofits and government agencies. We need to put the people with those expertises within your system, within your organization, to work together at the inception, when the data comes in or when the algorithms are being created, and then the whole development life cycle of the AI or whatever it is that you're creating. And so you want to have the ethicists and the corporate responsibility people working alongside with the engineers and the innovators. And so at the end of the book, I actually put a little Venn diagram together. This is me, hope springs eternal. And I guess going back to Pandora, there was hope. So
there was hope.
Offering the world a little hope here. What I basically say is, hey, guys, those of you who are innovators have to think a little bit more human-centric. So I want you to be human-centric innovators. Think about some of those consequences. And then the people who are the stewards, who are often academics and so on, learn more about the cutting edge technologies, use those technologies, understand what they mean, so that there can be sort of this Venn diagram overlap of what I call visionary stewards and human-centric innovators. And so that is sort of what I'm trying to promote, is a thinking that brings us together rather than creates this sort of accelerationist versus doomers, which I don't think, it doesn't help anybody, so to speak.
Is there a company you work with that best exemplifies this Venn diagram?
Great question.
Where you have a balanced approach. Does that company have like an ethical and humane use of technology officer? Is there some function that allows you to, follow a North Star in terms of making sure you're not drifting away from your core values as you're building innovation, powerful innovation?
I can't claim them as current clients, but I think there are two. One is a former client and the other one isn't. There are two companies, one highly, developed and trillion, and the other one is more or less a startup.
Wow.
And I'm talking about
Wow.
Microsoft, and I'm talking about Anthropic. And those two companies, one is, been around forever and is huge, and the other one is 3 years old or 4 years old, something like that. And I think both of them exemplify what I think is the right way to go about this. So if you look at Mustafa Suleyman, who's the chief AI officer and head of their AI, he wrote a really good book a couple of years ago, which really got me hooked. And he was talking not only about the AI issues, but also the synthetic biology issues. The next wave, the coming wave, was his book. And he's now there, and he has a really good blog that kind of marries these issues together. He talks about some of the responsibilities. Now, whether these companies actually do what they say, I think, we all have to be the judges of that, right?
Sure.
But they seem to be doing and investing into the resources that consider the impacts, for example, on stakeholders. Same case with Dario Amodei. Now he's in a in a battle royal to become the dominant, if he isn't already, the dominant, generative AI chatbot, whatever you want to call it. But he is taking this stuff seriously, and he's jeopardizing potentially some of the business, certainly from the government. Sure. But he's gotten a ton of business from people who trust, Anthropic more than they do OpenAI right now. So, so for me, he's a really shining example of, you put yourself out there to stakeholders, you consider their concerns and their expectations, and then you can sort of develop more trust in your product. Now, of course, that can be lost overnight if something terrible happens, or if there's lack of trust in the products or services. But I think those are two really good examples of corporations, and both in the startup and the very developed company, that I would say fit that mold.
That's so important, right? You talk about the aspects across the technology, the governance that's required. What qualities are you seeing that needs to be in the leadership? Because this is not your grandparents' board. This is not your, grandmother's executive team. I mean, this is like a different group.
Yes.
Okay, so and I'll flip it around a little bit as you're answering that question. Would you think that what's actually changing is we're going to see a very different group of CEOs emerge, and a group of CEOs start to retire because they're like, I don't want any of this.
We're already seeing it, Ray. We're already seeing it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've been a naysayer about how unequipped, especially boards, are for this era. And I've been I've served on boards for about 30 yeed, and I've done everything like the 360. I've been a general counsel. I've been a corporate secretary. I've reported to boards. I've received reports. I'm very involved with the community, and I think they are waking up to the fact that this is the train has left the station. There is no way, or the rocket has left the station, and there's no way that you can't be more prepared, that you shouldn't be more prepared. But I think it's the way that boards get populated, sort of the good old boys network, and I emphasize boys, and even though they're women, and minorities also are sort of on the short end of that. And so we need more people who really understand the current technology landscape, who are curious and humble. Those are my favorite words when I'm talking about board members. And curiosity and humility don't always go hand in hand with being a powerful board member. Sometimes they're retired people, sometimes they're obviously very accomplished people, but they don't have that humility to say, I don't really know this stuff, and I really need to learn this and get my hands dirty, and so on and so forth. So humility, curiosity, also really one of the topics I talk about a lot is the idea of situational awareness. And your previous guests kind of hinted a little bit to this. What do board members need to do? They need to adopt situational awareness of the mega trends and the trends, and understand that from month to month, if not quarter to quarter at least. And it's something they've ignored because Cassandra, right? In the past, they've been able to navigate, but we've had too many large scale disruptions, COVID, now AI, in the past financial, and this is going to continue. And this is the world of what somebody called polycrisis with, on steroids, basically. So we have polycrisis on steroid. We have highly complex crises. if board members don't become situationally aware and systems thinking in ways that they haven't before, their companies are in trouble. Their stakeholders, shareholders are in trouble.
That's great advice. We have a lot of executives who watch the show who are aspiring authors, and you've written 6 books. Pandora came out, I think, February of this year.
Yes.
But you're on, every couple of years you write an amazing book. So I'm hoping for breaking news for your 7th book announced here on the show. But what advice do you give to folks that have served on boards, have led lines of business, are leading companies who are looking to write their first book? How do you start? Why did you write the last one?
Yeah.
At what point do you convince yourself, all right, I got to put pen to paper and write 70,000 words, a typical business book, about 70,000 words.
Right.
What motivates you? What advice do you have? Because more and more I'm in front of executives who are asking me, and I really, for me, it's like a root canal exercise. I don't really find it.
I just had a root canal last week, so don't remind me.
It is. I find no joy in writing, but when it's done, I feel like it's legacy work. So I'm not sure if I've been able to give them good advice. So I'm hoping you can.
No, this is a great question. So I just finished watching the Godfather 3, where they keep pulling him back in, right? So this last book was an example of that. I wasn't looking forward to writing another book. I write a lot of articles, and the reason I write is to both educate myself about sort of cutting edge things that I'm seeing in the marketplace, and then be able to help others to understand it, and then create actionable planning and strategies and so on. So that's the purpose for me writing. A book is a very big undertaking, and it is a very painful, very, very painful undertaking.
We're not helping the aspiring.
You're not helping us with this at all.
That's true. We're being honest. We're being honest.
I'm being honest. I think if you have something to say, you have an experience, you have an area of expertise that hasn't been widely written about, or you have a historical sort of experience working for a company, doing something geographically. If there's something new and interesting or different about your theme, I would say explore that with yourself first in terms of what would that look like, and then talk to friends who've already authored books. I've had countless friends over the last, 15 or 20 years ask me, and I've introduced them to a couple of the publishers that I've worked with, and several of them have published books with them. So they had a good idea, and I wasn't embarrassed in recommending them to some of the publishers. So I think that's a battle plan, but have something to say. Don't just do it because you think you have to, like all these political candidates who are going to become president one day, and so they have to write their autobiography. Don't do it for that reason. Do it because you have a really good thing to offer the public.
I think after writing our books, we're disqualified for ever running from office. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, but Andrea, we put together 120 public CEOs and board of directors together in March, about a month ago.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that was really a realization that the CEO is now the chief AI officer. There's a realization that these AI projects, that even a company that's not a tech company could actually transform themselves to become an AI company, because the technology is a commodity now. And so the expertise is there. It's everywhere. It's actually free, but the experience is not. And so there's this realization that the human is back in the loop. The critical path comes back to the human, which is the most important piece. And so they've just got to hire smarter people along the way for that decision-making, but a lot of experience. And then on the flip side, the training has to be in a holodeck, just like in Star Trek, because there's not a lot of place for people to actually make mistakes if you're younger. But how do you learn and build those capabilities is going to be one of the things that we keep seeing. So I think you're going to be very, very popular in boardrooms for quite some time to come. Definitely, these are some of the key things that people are trying to get to. But this Pandora's box is only going to continue. So, hey, thank you for being here. So we really appreciate this. Yeah. Andrea Bonime-Blanc,
on your 6th book.
author of Governing Pandora, her 6th book, Leading in the Age of Generative AI and Exponential Technology. And I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of her. Catch her book on Amazon. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, that was the fastest hour of my week.
I know what's going on, man.
It's amazing to, having a former CTO of the Defense Intelligence Agency, having Dr. Bray, who again it continues to advise dozens of companies of all sizes, and celebrated best-selling author talking to us about exponential governance mindset. And a river without boundaries is a puddle. So we do need to have a certain set of boundaries to maintain healthy flow as we implement these new technologies.
I love that.
Do us a favor and summarize the show in less than 60 seconds, if you could, Ray.
Oh my God, that's almost next to impossible. But what's going on when David
Data
Bray
centers everywhere.
when David Bray and Bob Gourley were speaking, I think what we realized very quickly was that our whole infrastructure, physical infrastructure, has a lot of risk, whether it's a data center, whether it's the energy, business resiliency and continuity is something that we really have to be thinking about. We're just not investing enough there. And of course, what that also means is that, we've got to make sure both physical and cybersecurity have homes and budgets and responsibilities, but also we actually need to do it at the federal level to make sure that we've got coordination. But then when we start thinking about the governance aspect, when we're talking to Andrea, what was interesting was, this is nothing new. Technology keeps getting unleashed on us, and we've got to figure out how to govern it, put it to work, make sure that people are using it properly, and more importantly, making sure that it's safe for not just internal users, but also people's stakeholders. And so I think if you're reading the book, you're going to learn more about not just what generative AI and exponential technology can do, but more importantly, it's out of the box. Now, what do you want to do? And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And this notion of polyrisks is going to be with us for quite some time. And of course, there are two terms we didn't get to, but I love in the book: tech masters of the universe and tech guardians of the universe.
Yeah, I like that. I like that juxtaposition, and the fact that you need both to co-create and collaborate, which we had a reminder with Dr. Michael Yu was on the show talking about, the lunatics and how, the practitioners and the philosophers and the scientists collaborating. And that's how we saw exponential growth in society as a result of innovation. Next week, we have one of our favorite, another first ballot Hall of Fame inductee into Disrupt TV is John Reed, co-founder of Diginomica, as a guest. And we have Paul Ingram, who's the Kravis Professor of Business at Columbia Business School and author of a new book, What Do You Really Stand For? That's a question I think all of us should be asking ourselves periodically. We're going to ultimately feature, it looks like, more than 70 authors this year on Disrupt, which is the same pace we've had for the last several years. So we're approaching featuring 300 authors in the last 3 years on our show. So it's pretty awesome. If it's Friday, it's Disrupt TV. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
We'll bring our guests back in the green room.